So, welcome back and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are listening to this. So, this is part two of the neglect of children. Some of it will be a little bit of we'll start with a little review first. So, some other factors that contribute to neglect. Okay, again, we've mentioned the stability or usually lack of stability of a family system, because remember, if the parent or caretaker does not have supports, it is much more difficult to have the family function in a healthy way. And again, the structure and organization of the family. Maybe the parent does have a lot of resources, and that would lessen their chances of neglecting their children. And what is the communication or interaction patterns? Think about what kind of communication pattern did you grow up? Generally, in a neglect situation, children have been yelled at. There's, emotional can be putting down, making every time the child does something, a person yells at the child or, ridicules the child. And what are the family boundaries? Okay, there can be healthy boundaries and unhealthy boundaries. Does the parent, try to treat the child like a friend? That's an unhealthy boundary. Does the parent discuss maybe their impending divorce with the child? That's an unhealthy boundary. And all of that contributes to, an unstable emotional life for the child. So environmental community stressors and also resources. Okay, so housing, what type of housing do the children live in? Do they have any space? Is it noisy? Is it in a neighborhood with resources? Job employment. Does the parent have a living wage job? In other words, a place where they can actually, afford to live a quality of life? And do they know where you can get the particular resources? And again, what's the neighborhood like? Do they have some informal social networks? Have they met people at the children's child care center or the school so that they have somebody to depend on? And cultural factors. There's all kinds of, cultural factors. And I don't just mean, the race or ethnicity. That is a key part in somebody's stressors. But also, socioeconomic status, and other factors like that. But the race and ethnicity is a huge one, particularly if you're in a minority population, black and brown population. You are always kind of have that layer of worrying about, racism. Is my child going to be safe? Is somebody going to um, make fun of my child? So that's another layer that we won't get into all the specifics of that right now. We don't have time, but that's a big cultural factor. Teaching your child, what to do. DWB. I've never heard of that. Driving while black. Um, you know, uh, Particularly black or brown men have a high percentage of being pulled over by the police. For usually absolutely nothing. And then accessibility and quality of formally organized services, institutions, food pantries. Do they know where to go for free health care? Do they know where to go for mental health counseling? If you're in Schenectady County, I've worked here for many, many years, there is a plethora of resources. But again, sometimes parents or caregivers don't know where to go, and you kind of have to guide them along with those resources. So we have the personality of parents or caretakers. The reason why they say mothers is because most of the children are with the mothers, but it can be other individuals also. So some of those characteristics are they can be withdrawn, very flat affect, never, and they're concentrating on themselves mostly. They're what we call the Piaget's concrete operational stage. So they're not abstract thinkers. They can't creatively brainstorm where they can find resources. And it's difficult for them to kind of understand material. And part of it might be because they are very withdrawn. The impulse-ridden mother, and again, it can be other individuals, a very, very low frustration level. So, if their child doesn't, get something, or they have to explain it more than once, these are the individuals that are going to just walk away and, neglect their children. The very low tolerance, for their children. They need immediate gratification. Okay, so with children, obviously you have to pay a lot of attention to them, and your needs often take second place or go on the back burner. It's very difficult for this type of individual to be able to do that. And they're erratic. Okay, children need rules and stability, but again, this type of personality is incapable of that. So one day they may say, oh, here, just eat all the candy they want. The next day they may be yelling at the child if they're eating too much candy. So that can be very confusing for the child. So then there's what we call the reactive depressive individual. And these individuals are depressed over their inability to adjust to some aspect of life, whether it is having another child in the home, sending the child off to childcare. Maybe they've lost their employment. Maybe they don't especially like their employment, and in this pandemic, we can see a lot of reasons that, people are depressed. And then we have the mentally challenged mother. This is not a large segment of people who neglect their child, but it still is, some individuals. And again, often they don't neglect, and most people don't neglect and abuse their children, I forgot to say this, because they don't love them. Usually it's a lack of something, either in their personality, or they've never learned how to properly assist in developing their children. Okay, some of the effects of neglect. Obviously, they have a lot of cognitive and language effects, receptive and expressive language deficits, okay, receiving language, understanding, comprehension, and then being able to express themselves, because maybe often when they've expressed themselves, they've been yelled at, and so that creates fear in them. Comprehension, verbal abilities, again, they're afraid to speak. And so that will lead to academic problems too. So the sooner we can assist these children, this will lessen some of their difficulties.